Returning to the places we once knew feels like stepping back into the pages of a forgotten book. You think you remember it all, the faces, the sounds, the rhythms of life. But sometimes, the past doesn't just sit quietly in your memory. It waits for you, watching from the shadows, until you're unprepared. That's how it happened for me when I returned to my village. I had left years ago, convinced I had escaped everything that haunted me. But there was one thing I couldn't outrun: the house on Dixie Lane. I had always known about it, but I had never given it much thought. A decaying, forgotten relic, as much a part of the village as the empty fields and distant hills. But this time, something was different. The moment I stepped onto that old, familiar road, I felt a creeping unease that I couldn't shake. The village had changed. The faces were older, the air thicker, heavier, but the house was the same. It stood just as it had all those years ago, but this time, it seemed to be waiting for me. The house on Dixie Lane was never a place people spoke about openly. Everyone knew it, but no one dared to talk about it. It had been abandoned for as long as anyone could remember. Its paint was peeling, the roof sagging, and the windows had long since been blackened by dust and rot. Yet, no one had the courage to tear it down. It was as though the house was alive, as if it had a hold on the land, and no one dared disturb it. I had heard the rumors when I was a child, stories whispered in hushed tones about strange happenings, strange sounds coming from the house at night. But as a teenager, I had dismissed them as nothing more than small-town superstition. Now, as an adult, I found myself walking past it again, feeling an unexplainable pressure in the air, a weight that pressed against my chest, making it hard to breathe. The world seemed unnaturally quiet, and yet, I could hear my own heartbeat pounding in my ears. I tried to ignore it. It was just an old house, a forgotten relic of the past. But every night, as I took my evening walks, I couldn't help but glance over at it. And every time I did, I felt the eyes of the house upon me, watching, waiting. At first, I told myself it was just the isolation of the place, the way it stood so still and silent, its windows dark like hollow eyes. But then the whispers started. It began with a faint sound, something so soft I thought I imagined it. A whisper on the wind. Tom. My name. At first, I thought it was a trick of the breeze, the rustling of leaves, or maybe a distant bird calling out in the night. But the second time I heard it, I froze. The voice was unmistakable, gentle yet insistent. Tom, come closer. I laughed it off, telling myself it was just the wind or some animal stirring in the bushes. But the more I tried to dismiss it, the louder it became. The whispers were no longer just passing sounds carried by the wind. They were directed at me, calling me by name, reaching out from the darkness of that house. Each night, the voice grew closer, more urgent, as if it were pulling me toward it, slowly unraveling the tight threads of my sanity. I was no longer sure of anything. The voice was real, I knew that much now. And it wasn't just the voice that was haunting me. It was the presence that surrounded it, the feeling that the house itself was alive, watching me, studying me. Every time I walked by, I felt the cold fingers of fear creep over my skin, tightening with every step I took toward the old house. I tried to hurry past it, but it was always there, just out of sight, like a shadow that followed me even when I turned my back. Then one night, as I passed by the house, the whispering was louder, more pronounced. It was no longer just a faint murmur, it was as if someone was standing right behind me, breathing my name in a voice I knew all too well. Tom. Come inside. I froze, my breath catching in my throat. The air around me grew heavier, suffocating, as if the house itself had extended its reach to drag me into its grasp. I could feel my heart hammering in my chest, each beat like a loud drum echoing through the silence of the night. But I couldn't stop. I couldn't move. I glanced at the house again, and that's when I saw it, something that made the blood run cold in my veins. A light flickered in the second-floor window. It was a faint glow, so weak and intermittent, but it was enough to make me stop. I stared at it, unable to look away. The light blinked off, then on again. And then, from within the depths of that dark house, I heard it again, closer this time. "Tom, you've come back." I turned, my feet moving before my mind could catch up. My pulse was a wild rush in my ears, my legs trembling beneath me. I had to leave. I had to get away. I told myself that I wasn't going back. But the voice was persistent. It followed me, calling out my name, louder, more insistent, until it felt like the walls of the house were closing in around me. My legs moved faster, but the shadows behind me seemed to stretch and lengthen, chasing me. When I reached the end of the street, I dared to look over my shoulder. There was nothing, no one standing behind me. But the feeling of being watched, of something following me, remained. It clung to me like a heavy fog, suffocating and relentless. The next morning, I went to see Mr. Hines, the oldest man in the village, someone who had lived there all his life. I had to know if he knew anything about the house, about the whispers. When I told him what had been happening, his face grew pale. He stared at me, his eyes filled with a mixture of pity and fear. "That house, Tom," he said, his voice barely above a whisper, "it doesn't just watch you. It listens. It knows when you've noticed it. And once it has your attention, it doesn't let go. You hear it once, and it will call to you, every time you're alone. It will make you want to listen. It will make you need to go inside. And once you step across the threshold, there's no going back." His words were like cold water, splashing against my face, waking me up from the daze I had been in. But even as I tried to ignore them, a part of me knew they were true. The house had chosen me. And I couldn't escape it. A week later, I packed up and left the village. I couldn't stay. The whispers had already started following me. Every night, when the world was quiet and I was alone, I could hear them. "Tom, come back." I left behind everything, the house, the village, the memories, but the whispers never stopped. They follow me, always just behind me, always in my ear. No matter where I go, I can't escape them. The house on Dixie Lane has a hold on me, and it won't let go. I hear it now, every night, when the silence is thick and the darkness presses close. I hear my name, faint but clear, from the depths of nowhere. And I know that one day, no matter how far I run, I will have to return. So, if you ever find yourself walking at night and hear your name whispered from the shadows, remember this: do not answer. Because once you do, the house will claim you. And it will never let you go. There's something about walking in the quiet of the night that unsettles the mind. When everything around you is asleep, and the world seems to shrink into silence, it's easy to get lost in your thoughts. For me, the nights had become a refuge, a place where I could escape the turmoil of my own mind after a painful breakup. The streets of my neighborhood were calm, peaceful, almost too perfect. But every time I walked past a certain vacant lot, something shifted inside me. It wasn't fear exactly, but an overwhelming sense of unease, something I couldn't explain. It wasn't a feeling you could easily shake, and I could never quite put my finger on why. The quiet of my neighborhood made it seem like nothing could possibly go wrong. But at night, in the dead of it, that's when the strange things happened. One particular night, as I wandered the streets to escape the suffocating thoughts, I found myself walking past that same vacant lot I had so often avoided. The moon hung low in the sky, casting a dull, cold light across the empty ground. The wind whispered through the trees, but there was something more than the typical stillness of the night. Something different. I saw him. A man, hunched over, digging feverishly into the earth with nothing but the dim light of the moon to guide his way. He wasn't using any tools to light his way, no flashlight, no lantern, just the pale glow of the night and his hands. His movements were quick, desperate, like he had an urgent purpose that no one else could understand. The soil flew from his hands, and the rhythmic sound of the shovel hitting the dirt echoed eerily in the silence of the night. I stopped walking, unsure of whether I should approach or just turn and walk away. There was something off about the way he moved, about the way he seemed so intent on his task. It wasn't normal. It wasn't the kind of thing you saw every day. But the thing that really unsettled me was that he didn't look like he was working on a simple chore. There was a sense of desperation in his actions, like he was trying to bury something or maybe unearth it. And then, suddenly, he stopped. He lifted his head from the hole, and our eyes locked. His gaze wasn't frantic. It wasn't startled. In fact, it was calm, almost knowing, as if he had been waiting for me. His smile was strange, not a smile of surprise, but one of recognition. "You're here early," he said, his voice soft and measured, like someone greeting an old friend they'd been expecting. My heart skipped a beat. I didn't know how to respond. The words caught in my throat, and I felt the first wave of real unease wash over me. The smile on his face wasn't one of someone who had just stumbled upon a stranger. It was as if he knew me, as if he had been waiting for me to show up. "What are you doing?" I finally managed to ask, though I instantly regretted the words as they left my mouth. He tilted his head slightly, eyes still locked on mine, and smiled again. "I'm just preparing for you, that's all. You'll understand soon enough." I didn't know what to make of it. The hair on the back of my neck stood up, and every instinct told me to turn around and leave. But I couldn't move. I couldn't break the hold his eyes had on me. I took a step back, trying to break free from the unspoken tension between us, but he just stood there, still watching, that same eerie smile frozen on his face. I couldn't shake the feeling that something about this encounter wasn't just strange, it was dangerous. So, I turned and walked away quickly, trying to distance myself from the unease that was growing inside me. But I couldn't escape the feeling that his gaze was still on me, that I was still being watched as I walked back down the dark street. The next night, I found myself inexplicably drawn back to the same spot. I tried to tell myself it was just curiosity, nothing more. But the truth was, something was pulling me back. The memory of the man's smile, the sense of something unfinished, something I couldn't understand, gnawed at me. Why had he been digging? What had he been preparing for? I grabbed my flashlight and headed out, my mind racing with questions. I didn't know why I was doing it, but I felt an almost magnetic pull toward that same vacant lot. The streets were quiet, the air thick with the weight of expectation. When I arrived, my heart sank. The hole the man had been digging was bigger now, much bigger. It was as if it had swallowed up the earth itself. The ground around it had been disturbed further, the dirt scattered in large mounds. The hole seemed to go deeper than before, as though the earth itself was opening up. But what unsettled me the most was the large, black garbage bag resting just outside the hole. It looked out of place, like a forgotten relic, abandoned in the night. I didn't know what to do. I stood there, my flashlight shaking in my hand, casting long, jittery shadows across the ground. The unease in my stomach grew, curling into something darker. Something told me I wasn't alone. Suddenly, I heard a noise, a soft rustling from behind me. I spun around, heart racing, but there was nothing there. The world was still. Too still. I turned back to the hole, and that's when I saw it, an object half buried in the dirt. I knelt down, heart pounding, and scraped away the earth. My fingers brushed against something cold, smooth metal. I pulled it free from the dirt, revealing a rusted tin box. It was old, ancient even, covered in grime. And there, etched into the lid, was a symbol I couldn't recognize. But that's not what terrified me. It was the feeling that I had just uncovered something that had been waiting for me. Something that had been buried, hidden, for a reason. And that reason wasn't meant to be found. The next morning, I couldn't shake the feeling that everything had changed. I went to the town archives, desperate for answers, but what I discovered chilled me to the bone. There was no record of the man I had encountered. No record of anyone having ever lived at the house near the vacant lot. The land didn't even seem to have a known owner, and there were no listed details about anyone connected to the house. It was as if it had never existed. But then, something more unsettling happened. When I passed by the lot later that day, the hole had disappeared. There was no sign of the digging, no evidence that anything had ever been disturbed. The ground was smooth, untouched. The garbage bag was gone. It was as if the night's events had never happened at all. But then, I found something. A small piece of paper, crumpled and damp from the morning dew, lay on the ground near where the hole had once been. I picked it up and unfolded it with trembling hands. Written in red ink, the message read, "Thank you for coming early." The words didn't make sense. They couldn't. But they haunted me. I haven't been able to explain it, and I don't think I ever will. Every time I walk through the neighborhood now, I feel that same uneasy presence, the sensation that someone, or something, is watching me. I can't shake the memory of that man, or the feeling that I've crossed a line I can never uncross. And I don't know what would have happened if I hadn't gone back that night. But I can't bring myself to go near that lot again. I can't. Because deep down, I know that whatever was waiting there isn't finished with me. And if I go back, it might just be my turn to take the man's place.